Nintendo just shadow dropped a Nintendo Direct Mini partner showcase. And like, so, we're following all the news and like really being attentive to that stuff. I was like, how did I miss this? And I think I texted you. At least in my head, I was meant to text you because this popped up and I think I was on YouTube and it was like, oh, this is 20 minutes ago, Nintendo Direct Mini. And it was like the proper YouTube, like Nintendo channel. I was like, huh? Have they just shadow dropped a Nintendo Direct? And, before jumping into the overall thoughts, and I'm kind of going to do it, I feel like they're doing this because they this is not that exciting and we don't want to build up any hype to it. Because even with the indie one, when they were trying to temper expectations and just go, hey, look, this is what we're going to show, and the other partner showcase, which was even very poorly received, I think they're just, hey, we'll just try to get it out there. What do you reckon?
Oh, I agree. I actually probably, preferred this one to the last one they had. I think
Do you mean the indie one or do you mean the partner showcase?
The partner one.
Yeah,
The first partner
I like this one way more. Yeah.
Yeah. But we had a lengthy talk when we reviewed that first one about people being their ridiculous expectations. And
yeah.
Just looking at, I think when I was watching it yesterday, there was like 50K positive on YouTube, and there was 40K negative. I'm like,
oh really?
Yeah, people want
that stuff.
People want the big announcements. They don't want these little things, and it's getting quite annoying in a way. Like, this is just a normal thing. Hey, we've got some games we want to update you. They're not saying we've got these huge announcements. It's just like, here's some third party stuff we just want to tell people about. And they had some new games to show. Games I've never heard about that actually seem cool. So,
and I think one of the challenges that I have with this stuff is it's almost like these videos have become the new version of a press release. And in the old days, you don't go, oh, here's a press release. Oh, okay, you got to see everything. You know what I mean? It's like you need to go, oh, this is what's interesting. This is not. But they're getting so good at producing these things now that people really look at it and just view it as like, oh my God, I need to get across this and understand everything. And then, it builds that hype up. And
it was like 11 minutes. They didn't spend very long on every game. Yeah. They just went through them. They didn't have like a 10-minute cutscene like they did for World of Warcraft in the Gamescom, which was just absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, let's talk about some of the stuff that they announced.
Yeah, and I'll go to the one that I was most interested in, but it's also, there's a bit of caveat to it. Puyo Puyo Tetris 2. So my wife is like obsessed about this game. She was ranked 100 in the world or in Australia or whatever it was. She was very good at this game. And, I showed her Puyo Puyo Tetris 2. I'm like, hey, look, it's a sequel. And she's like, I can't even tell the difference. Because I was kind of thinking that as well. I was watching it going, I've seen her play it a lot. I've played Puyo Puyo Tetris a bit. And I'm like, I can't really even tell the difference. And the thing is, I don't know if you know Puyo Puyo Tetris, but there's a story to it. You can actually like have an adventure mode. And the story is horrible. And it's like...
What are you expecting?
No, but dude, it's worse than that. Because if it's just bad, okay. But it's full of like sexist stereotypes, like homophobia. It's crazy. Like, I was watching it going, wow, this really feels like it's taken from like a different time. Or a different culture, and it's just been translated like directly
from Japan. That's why.
I know, but normally what they do is they soften this stuff. But this is like almost direct translations, right?
Man, the amount of, especially like though we talked about those Kemco games that I play.
Yeah.
Man, there's some rough stuff in those. Like, there's seriously like implied incest and things in those. It's ridiculous, but it's played up for laughs. It's like, she's my little sister. Don't you like little sisters? It's like, come on, really? You're throwing this into these little RPGs?
So I might be wrong, but I'm fairly sure that the first Puyo Puyo Tetris had some kind of like incest jokes. And I was looking, I'm like, is this like an incest joke? I'm like, what? And it seems like one of the big things from this game is the new adventure mode. I'm like, no one's playing this game for the adventure mode. It's so bizarre. And I think the other thing is, this game to me is a bit weird because, specifically for Switch, so this is coming out for more than the Switch, it's coming out for everything. But on the Switch, you've got Tetris 99, and you can, buy the DLC to play all the modes of Tetris, and it's a great version of Tetris. And then you can just buy Puyo Puyo directly. So like,
Puyo
who's
Puyo
buying this game?
Champions is actually really, really good.
Yeah, which is basically just they've extracted the Puyo Puyo out of this game. So, I just think it's weird. For me, it was like the biggest thing for this whole direct. I was like, oh, that's kind of really weird that they're making a sequel to this game. And I guess, the original Tetris on Game Boy had a sequel, Tetris 2. So there's history there. And second is, and I'm going to butcher this name, Taiko no Tetsujin. Is that right?
Yeah,
why am I not getting you to say this? Because you actually know Japanese.
What? I know, at least know how to pronounce it. Taiko no Tetsujin. So,
and is this the first time it's coming out to the West?
Well, this particular thing. So these are like RPG games, and I believe this is the first time they are. They did put out one of the Taiko games on the Switch already a little while back, but I think it may have been closer to the. I'm not sure, but my assumption is it's closer to the actual rhythm games that like the arcade games and things like that. But this actually looks pretty cool. I've only ever played this game once in an arcade, the original Taiko, I guess it was the original Taiko game. But yeah, this looks pretty neat. Anything that's kind of, got the quirkiness that this does is pretty appealing to me. So
yeah, and we should just say like a rhythm game, like a drum rhythm game, right?
Yeah, Taiko drums, yeah.
Yeah, and they actually are releasing, like, you can order it, not in Australia, but in the US, the drum, like, I think at GameStop, which is pretty cool. If they release that in Australia, I'd definitely think about getting it, because I think we both love rhythm games. And I was kind of sad that all the rhythm games died away, just with the, just too many of them, really. And this was very, rhythm-heavy direct as well.
Yeah,
but
I
not
think
the next
that's
game.
Also led to a lot of people being frustrated because I think they did almost like they did back-to-back Kingdom Hearts, which we'll get to in a moment, and then this game. So it's like,
and then another rhythm game as well. There was 3 in a row. I think to start with it, so people were like, "Oh, this is a rhythm direct."
I read a comment somewhere. Disappointed the tank game wasn't a rhythm game.
Well, yes, the tank game. So World of Tanks Blitz. So this is the port of the mobile game. And in the underlying game, World of Tanks, very... How do you describe it? It's not like it's not... Because it's a massive game, but it's one of those games that's a bit under the radar for most mainstream gamers. I'm not sure what you call that. Like cult, I guess? Cult gaming classic or favorite?
I wouldn't say
right?
cult. I'd just say it's kind of
really?
It's a popular niche game.
But I feel like people, if you ask people, there's a lot of people who wouldn't even know what this game is.
But I mean, when World of Tanks was at its height of popularity, like it was a very well-known property.
Okay, no, fair enough. Like in the Xbox 360 era.
Yeah, and it started on PC and that, but then they brought it to consoles. It's a huge money maker, and I can't remember. I think they've done World of Battleships or something. They've done another version of I guess Warfare. But yeah, I mean, honestly, the game does not appeal to me one bit. I'm just gonna put it out there.
Well, always with these things, I don't like when the mobile version gets ported to the Switch.
Happens,
and maybe there's a reason why that's. Hey, what was that?
Happens a lot.
Yeah, I know, and I really don't like it. Like, I feel like it's not a good strategy as well. Like, it just kind of burns your IP on the Switch for me. Because a lot of people have had backlash over those type of games. So, I'm same boat as you, not very keen on this game. Would be more keen if, it was the actual proper version of it.
So a game that I'm keen on, or at least
yes, really,
is Big Rumble Boxing Creed Champions. This game,
really?
Man, I'll tell you why. So not only do I love the Rocky movies, I've got to watch the latest Creed, Creed 2 or whatever it was called. I hadn't seen that yet, but
Creed 2, yeah.
And did you ever play the Rocky game on GameCube?
No.
Oh, it was probably on other systems as well, but it was actually really, really fun. It was really cool, and if this game is even half as good as that, I'm pumped to try this out. It looks pretty bad, but it also looks very arcadey, So I just love Rocky. I just want to put that out there. That's all.
So I'm all for arcadey. I'm like probably more into games that are arcadey, but the game looks worse than a mobile game.
Oh, it looks bad, but I don't care.
Dude,
like
it looks
as long as I
bad.
can knock out Clubber Lang as Ivan Drago, that's all I want.
But it does. It's got to be a mobile game, right?
Apparently not that I could see.
Okay.
Research, trying to get things right. All I could find was that it's also coming to PS4, PC, and Xbox One. God, imagine what Xbox One and PS4 are going to look like, and PC for that matter as well. Yeah.
But whether it's just super unoptimized for Switch because it looks really rough.
It's a super budget game, but it's like that Rocky game on GameCube is what's actually made me interested in it. I don't think it's involving any people worked on it at all. I'm just like, hey, it's a Rocky game.
Because I'm just looking at Xbox games from back in the day that were boxing games, like the original Xbox.
That Rocky game, I reckon, actually in my memory looked better than this game.
No, it looks so bad.
Anyway, another game that I don't know if this was previously announced. I don't think it was a collection of SaGa Final Fantasy Legend.
No, this wasn't announced. Yeah,
this was awesome because I've only ever played the first Final Fantasy Legend, and I only ever played it on emulator, I think, and didn't put a lot of time into it. But man, just making it so that these games there's avenues to play these games if you don't own the original copies and you don't want to mess around with the murky world of emulation.
You could buy an analog pocket. They're very easy to buy,
but then you need to still track down the games to play them.
True.
Yeah. So if you don't want to do that, then again, that's emulation world. But it's interesting because they're all Game Boy games, and they don't think they were Game Boy Color like number 3 or anything. From they didn't show them looking like Game Boy Color games, I should say. So I'm always keen to try these, but these collections, just like the Secret of Mana collection, they're just so overpriced. They're just so ridiculously expensive.
Yeah.
So that's
it makes sense from a pricing. Yeah, but it makes sense from a pricing strategy point of view to make them overpriced.
I know. It's just times where I'm just like, oh man, I wish this had gone on sale. Because the problem is, it's not that they're not worth it. It's that whole situation where you've got so many other games. Yeah. So you kind of like, I'll pick it up if it goes on special. But in terms of other things that I'll...
Well, before you move on, do you want to do the obligatory, these aren't actually Final Fantasy games kind of thing?
No, because I definitely don't know enough about that I'll get that wrong. So all I'll say is the Game Boy SaGa games. There we go.
So the weird thing is, because the way they're advertising this is, they're actually being really clear that these are a part of the SaGa series.
Yeah.
Which is a totally different series to Final Fantasy. But originally when they came out, Final Fantasy Legend.
Yeah.
And the same thing happened with Final Fantasy Adventure. And then, they had that collection, as you just said. And yeah, it's kind of interesting how they're kind of just saying both at the same time. It's like, it's a collection of SaGa, and then it's Final Fantasy. I'm like, I love Square Enix's, naming conventions. It's like crazy. And we're going to get to that right now.
Yeah, so previously announced was Kingdom Hearts Melody of Memory. So that's a rhythm game set, obviously, the Kingdom Hearts universe. So this is coming out actually mid-November to not only obviously Switch, but also PS4 and Xbox One. The only reason I want to point this out is I actually recently played through Kingdom Hearts for the very first time ever. I'd only ever done like the first hour or so on the PS2. And so now anytime I see Kingdom Hearts now, I actually understand a lot more of like, they were going through Traverse Town in the trailer. I'm like, oh, I recognize that music and things. So the thing is, I still need to play through number 2 and Birth by Sleep and Chain of Memories and all these the side ones that they've got so many of them. But it's, that's the only things. I'm kind of going to make it a goal of mine to get through all the games by this time next year. So,
really? Like even the ones that are exclusive on certain mobile phones?
No, just the ones they've ported in those collections.
Okay.
And the ported, I mean, there's like 8 games in those collections. So they're the ones that I guess are the most important for understanding the story, which apparently gets super convoluted. Because the first Kingdom Hearts was pretty simple.
Oh, really? The story?
The first one was, but then it apparently goes all apeshit. So we'll see whether or not that's the case or not. But the other thing I wanted to mention here was Jump Force Deluxe Edition. So Jump Force was released a couple of years ago on a bunch of platforms, and didn't get a very good reception. And it's such a shame because it's got some characters from, a whole bunch of Shonen Jump series. And one of my favorite all-time shows, maybe my favorite, is Hunter x Hunter. And there's no Hunter x Hunter games that they release out here, really. And they've got some of the characters in this game, and I really wanted it to be great. And that was on Game Pass, and I downloaded it, and man, the game sucked. It's just, I just played horribly. So I just want to say it's such a shame that, I hope this version sounds like it's that with all the DLC, but I hope at some point they'll make, Jump, I can't remember, Jump Superstars, I think it was on the DS. That wasn't actually too bad, but yeah. Anyway.
So it's gonna be the complete version of the crap game.
Yeah. And the last thing I just want to point out, so they're releasing Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles on Switch as well as PS4.
Well, it's released.
Mobile. It's released, yeah. So you've got a PSA here, right?
Yes.
So do not buy the game if you currently live in Australia, New Zealand, as it's trying to connect. If you want to play online
co-op.
Because it tries to connect to the EU servers, right?
And it doesn't work, and it just times out.
So
this is happening with everyone.
I had a different PSA, I didn't note it down here, is that this game was originally a local co-op game. There's no local co-op in it at all. So just a heads up about that if people are expecting it to play like the original Crystal Chronicles. Yeah,
this whole game was very strange. So, like in terms of its development. So we didn't cover it, but because we sort of, we had so many other stories, but they actually came out and said they can either have local co-op or online co-op. They were only going to have one or the other from a budget perspective. And the team decided that online co-op is the way to go. More people play online, which is 100% true from a stats point of view. It does seem strange to me from such a big studio that, they're not investing in that local co-op, given that, as you pointed out, the game was so famous for that, so it's one of the marks of that game. Why wouldn't you want to bring that back in? It's like if they release a GoldenEye remake or something like that and didn't have local co-op. I just feel like that would be strange, but you know what, it'd probably happen. But yeah, in this case, given that it's such a core feature for some people, like in Australia, New Zealand, or probably any other countries that are remote, like South Africa, it seems like they've only got a couple of servers worldwide, probably Europe, Japan and North America, and for whatever reason Australia is attached to EU and it only tries to connect through the EU, and by the time it gets routed, comes back, everything, it times out. So it seems like no one has confirmed that they're able to play it in Australia. So it's just like it's such a mess. It's strange. And I've heard very negative things about this game. It seems like they haven't really updated the game at all in terms of like load times and all this other kind of stuff. So yeah, it's a bit of a shame.